Chirp, chirp, chirp. Chirp, chirp, chirp. Chirp, chirp, chirp. What is it with these transsexuals? How do they not know whether they're a boy or a girl? Like, wouldn't looking in their pants solve their confusion? Like, I know I'm not a unicorn by looking in a fucking mirror, but if I identified as one, I could get me a surgeon to cut my own cock off and sew it to my head and legally change my species. Whoa, 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 whoa. Hold up, hold up, hold up. Friend, listen, that's not what medical science has to say about transsexuals. Transgender is the proper term. Look, I have a master's degree in biology. Would you be willing to give me a few minutes to explain transgenderism from a scientific perspective? Well, stranger, you're respectful, you're wearing a suit, you don't have your hair dyed some weird color, and at the time of this video, you wear a mullet, the manliest of haircuts. So, I guess I'll listen to what you have to say. Thanks. My name is Tommy. And like I was saying, the term is transgender, and it refers to people whose perceived gender identity differs from their reproductive sex. So a person who is reproductively male, but perceives oneself as female, that's what we call a trans woman. Like I said, crazy. Actually, no. See, all vertebrate embryos begin as female and developmentally transition to male under certain conditions. In humans, at a certain point in development, a gene called the SRY gene gets expressed that causes the female embryo to begin male development. But sometimes things can go wrong. In terms of genital anatomy, sometimes genetic males, people with the SRY gene, will develop vaginas or other female reproductive anatomy, while sometimes genetic females can develop male anatomy. And some people are born with both sets of genitals or an intermediate genital structure. And these people we call collectively intersex. Reproductive sex is what we call a bimodal spectrum. Most people's genitals fits in one category or another, but sometimes it's in between. But trannies have cocks. Hold on. Forgive me, I was not finished. Just like reproductive sex, gender, remember that's our perceived sex, fits the same bimodal spectrum pattern as reproductive sex. This led scientists as early as the 1950s to consider a biological cause for gender, and it turns out there's a lot of gendered variance between brain structures. So it's not unreasonable to say that there are male brains and female brains. Of course, it's a little more complicated than that. The brain is much more complex than a penis. Insert your own joke here. But gender appears to really be neurological sex. Brain sex. And yes, reproductively male people can have neurologically female brains. So no, transgender people are not crazy. Trans women really are women trapped in a man's body. Trans women are biologically female, just not reproductively female. I hadn't considered that before. I guess that kinda makes sense for trannies, but what about all these freaks who are confused about what they are, or call themselves Xers? I think it's pronounced Zer, but what you're talking about there are non-binary people. Just like there are reproductively intersex people, there are people with intersex brains. Some might be confused if they haven't encountered the term before, but most transgender people and most non-binary people know what they are from an early age. Okay, but what about people who say they're a different age, or a dog, or an alien? Surely they can't be biological reasons for those, can they? Well, there is a biological basis for transageism. There's different developmental rates. So, for example, people may be socially or emotionally delayed, and that's a very real thing. Most of the folks who claim to be dogs are either into BDSM or pet play, or they're what are known as therians or otherkin. There's virtually no studies on the neurology of these folks, but most therians and otherkin have a spiritual view of their position, that they share a spiritual unity with their spirit animals, for a lack of a better term. And this is part of a shamanic experience that has been felt by humans since before recorded history. So clearly there is something going on there that is universal to the human experience. Okay, maybe trannies are real women, but what's with the chopping off of the dick? The proper term is medical transitioning. Look, a lot of trans people feel depression and anxiety at being stuck in the wrong body. I think most of us would in that case. It's called gender dysphoria, and it's a well-studied and well-known psychological condition. And one of the well-studied treatments is medical transition. It's not the only treatment, and there's a debate about whether it's the best treatment, but it is a well-studied treatment for gender dysphoria. It was once believed that dysphoria and seeking medical transition were required to be trans, and some people still believe that, and they're wrong, but most scientists now understand that dysphoria is not necessary. Rather, transgenderism should probably be viewed as a form of neurodivergence, analogous to and comorbid with autism and ADHD. Some of those who support the neurodiversity model even favor giving the condition the informal name Harry Benjamin syndrome, after a pioneer of trans medicine who was one of the first people to believe in the neurodiversity model. But they're cutting off our kids' dicks. Sorry, no. No, they are not. The DPath standard of care, which is the standard of care for medical transitioning, requires years of consultation and the approval of multiple medical professions. It is almost never performed on those under 18. What about bathrooms? I don't want my wife in the woman's bathroom when some big dude in a dress comes in. I understand your concern, but a sign on the door wouldn't stop a man with ill intent from doing the same, right? And if transgenderism is analogous to autism, then transgender people are disabled and should be considered as such under the law. We have federal law requiring bathroom access for the disabled. We should have it for not merely the visibly disabled, but also the neurologically disabled as well. Can you prove any of this? Yeah, let me just flash my bibliography on screen real quick. Whoa, what's going on? Oh yeah, I have the ability to temporarily warp my local reality. Anyway, look, just because we can define ourselves scientifically doesn't mean we should have to. Under most circumstances, a person saying that one's trans should be good enough, unless a person seeking medical transition or some kind of formal recognition of a disability, under which case it may make sense to require medical validation. But most disabled people actually would prefer if there wasn't medical requirements for disability services. See, there are a lot of people for whom healthcare is prohibitively expensive and hostile. Just like the autistic community accepts self-diagnosis for the most part, especially for those born before 1994, so too does most of the trans community accept self-identification. And aside from the practical considerations, it's degrading to have to constantly justify your existence to skeptics, like the way religious folks, especially from minority and indigenous religions, are compelled to constantly justify themselves to the atheist community. You hate atheists too? Not all atheists, just self-described, quote, rational skeptics. What a pack of reactionary assholes. The worst of humanity, really. I should know, I used to be one. Wait, are you a tranny too? Well, technically, yes, I'm transgender. I'm non-binary. I have an intersex brain and a reproductively male body. I don't presently experience gender dysphoria, but I did. I even looked into medical transitioning through androgenization surgery. But my dysphoria was resolved through therapy, and now I'm comfortable in a reproductively male body. I'm not performatively intersex, aside from going by the gender-neutral version of my name, and not trying to suppress my effeminate voice anymore. I act male. I even love raw steak. But gender is neurology. It's an internal sense, not an external performance. I also don't feel comfortable imposing my pronouns on anybody, or watching people mutilate the English language trying to accommodate me. But for what it's worth, this one, or that one, is the grammatically correct animate gender-neutral pronoun in English, and that's what I prefer. Well, mister, I still think your trannies are weird, but maybe you're not delusional after all. I'm glad I could help. What the fuck is that? Oh no. No, 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 no. How dare you misgender them? What the fuck is that thing? The greatest enemy of trans acceptance there is. The trans trender. What's a trans trender? It's a trans person, or one of their allies, who rejects the science of gender. To them, medical science is just a form of cis-het patriarchy, which, in fairness to them, it kind of is, but instead they claim that gender is a social performance. And it's that one, not them, you asshole. I just got through saying that. So when we say trannies are delusional, these trannies say you guys are delusional? Yep. We have every right to be delusional and proud. Being delusional is fundamentally human. It's how we built the pyramids. You watch a lot of ContraPoints, don't you? She's my goddess. Well, forgive my heresy, but you just trivialized clinical delusion, a serious medical condition, and just affirmed the central argument of the transphobes, that we're crazy because we are not who we say we are. And when we say, yes we are, and here's the proof, you attack us. Well, have you ever had your brain imaged? No. Well, how do you know you have an intersex brain? You're relying on feelings, the same as me. Yeah, but I'm also autistic. I've never had my brain imaged, and that doesn't mean that I deny that autism is a form of neurodivergence with a fundamentally genetic basis either. I can comfortably rely on science that has been done in other people. But those brain differences don't show up until after puberty, which is proof that the brain is plastic and changes based on social conditioning. We can't predict people's gender identity based on brains. People don't develop boobs until their teenage years either. Do you think boobs are socially constructed? And yeah, we need a large sample size of brains and decades-long studies to be able to predict gender identity at a young age, but probably we will be able to do that in the not-too-distant future. Next Sunday AD, even. But transmedicalism is ahistorical. Genders have been understood to be many in many indigenous cultures. Transmedicalism is colonialist. Definitionally, all medical discoveries are ahistorical, and indigenous cultures have had many wacky beliefs about healing. If those cultures want to practice those healing methods religiously, fine, but medicine is under no obligation to take those practices seriously, and medicine is under no obligation to take two-spirit people seriously either. Actually, yeah, why don't you guys just claim that your experience of transness is a religion, call yourselves transkin or whatever, and stay out of our way as we seek medical understanding? I'd support your right to that religious belief. Why don't you? Because gender is a social construct. Saying gender is real is fascist. You know what? In doing research for this video, I came across an account of a trans man who felt guilty for feeling truly validated for the first time when encountering the transmedicalist position. He came to understand that he was a real biological man, not a socially constructed man, not a performative man, but a real man. And you trans trenders shamed him for that validation. That's the core of what pisses me off about you trenders. Let me tell you about a man named Ivar Lovaas. Ivar Lovaas believed gender was a performance, full of social reinforcement. Sounds like a great trans ally. Ivar Lovaas invented conversion therapy. He would punish gay and trans people when they acted effeminate to provide them with the proper social reinforcement. Now, can you explain to me, if gender is a social construction, why doesn't conversion therapy work? Can you explain to me why, if gender is a social construct, in cases where people are raised from birth as a different gender than their identity, as commonly happens to reproductively intersex people, they often reject that gender identity, and occasionally to tragic results? No. Can you explain why approximately 1 in 4 trans people, myself included, are also autistic. Because you are too socially inept to absorb social conditioning. Now try it without the disgusting ableism and inspirational disability rhetoric. Isn't it more likely that one developmental difference is likely to be correlated with another? No. Look, it's you who deny science. The scientific consensus is that gender is a social construction. All the sociologists agree with me. And sociologists are qualified to discuss developmental neurology how exactly? Well, can you define an essentially masculine quality a universally manly trait? No. So gender is a social construction. That's gender roles, and we don't believe in gender essentialism. We're talking here about gender identity. I perceive myself to be a man and go out and find out what society says about being a man. But my self-perception as a man is neurological. Excuse me, boys. I'm gonna go. Maybe you trannies are crazy after all. I'm a woman! Wait, no. Come back. Ugh. You bitch, I almost had him on our side. Why do you waste your breath trying to persuade transphobes? Don't you know they will always hate you? Sure, some will, but most of them hate us because they don't understand us. Most of them think we're crazy, and you trenders confirm their worst suspicions. I'm trying to change that. When has respectability politics ever gotten anything accomplished? All the time. When capitalism isn't challenged, liberal bootlicking gets a lot done. Hell, most gay rights organizations collectively lick more boot than cock. And when capitalism needs to be challenged, it's Marxist-Leninists that get things done. You are neither. You're just a self-hating transphobe. All you transmedicalists are. Oh, I'm the self-hating transphobe. I think you are a biological woman. You don't. I think your womanhood isn't dependent on your performance, which is good because you are a terrible performative woman. I don't support conversion therapy. Your view can't explain why it doesn't work. Your view is implicitly ableist against neurodivergent people, and your rhetorical tactics make it worse for us to... You know what? I think I have a way to deal with you, and this way you won't have to worry about fat phobia either. You're close enough. What? Local reality warp powers activate. Where are we? This is just a cold, endless, white void. Oh no, friend. This is Siberia, circa 1948. Wait. Happy re-education, comrade. Now where'd that redneck go? Let's see if I can fix this mess. Oh, don't worry, I'll get her before anything bad happens. She just needs to cool her heels and check her abled privilege for a little bit. See you later, folks.